numbers of sources. So one of the things that, as a mentor, we provide the business with a number of options they should consider as a source of funding. We also work with businesses. I mean, the typical question we as mentors get asked is, how can I improve my visibility? How can I get more leads? That's a classic question. So this is about, I mentioned the word visibility. So in order for any business or organisation, you need to be noticed, and that's what I call visibility. So social media is a tremendous way, I believe, in order to get the visibility of an organisation out there. But there are all sorts of forms of promotion and marketing techniques, which our advice is that not to put all your eggs in one basket, but you need to have a spread of different ways in which the business gets its visibility, and that includes networking. I'm a great promoter of networking because networking gives you that face-to-face opportunity to not only get visibility of yourself and your business, but also it's really the start to building relationships, and that's what business is about, building relationships. So where did I start before I became a mentor? Well, I started many moons ago in the oil industry. I worked for a company called BP, which was a global organisation, and I had a number of roles with that organisation, but the majority of those roles was around the introduction of new technology and new processes. So one of the big transformations that the company undertook from a distribution perspective, this is the face-to-face contact with the public, was that they changed their service stations, the old traditional petrol pumping station, into a mini market. So that's one of the significant transformations that have happened in the oil industry. What you see today is that they're just not a place where you go to get petrol, but you can also get groceries and a whole raft of different merchandise. So one of the challenges that the organisation and the owners of these franchises had was, how do they transition from being a petrol station, and usually the owner was a mechanic, into running a mini market. So it was a significant transformation, not only for the business, but also for the individual supplier. So that was the background, and that basically launched another career for me in becoming, I set up a small business consultancy to provide assistance to the owners of these franchises that were moving into this new area. And from that, I then gravitated back to the corporate world, mainly running projects and programs around transformation in organisations. And that, the logical extension was that I started in the oil industry and then moved across into government. And that took me into defence, and that basically took me around the world. So I did a lot of consulting in Southeast Asia and North America on introducing new technologies and new processes into large corporate organisations. And some of those were pretty significant, like General Electric, Boeing, a number of defence contractors in the US and Southeast Asia. And then after I well, I decided it's time to take a step back and go into semi-retirement. So I went back to running just consulting with previous clients on an as required basis. But I also then joined the Small Business Mentoring Service, SBMS as we call it, as a volunteer mentor. How do I get involved with SBMS? Well, basically through my daughter, who was a vet and was starting her own business, and she engaged a mentor to assist her in that startup. And she said to me, Dad, I think this is something that you should be doing. So that's how I came to join SBMS, and I've been with SBMS now for pretty close to 10 years, not only as a mentor, but I've also been a member of the board, and I set up SBMS's quality management processes and systems, and together with some other board members, we produced a mentoring manual and professional development program for mentors. So that in a nutshell. So I hope that's a brief explanation of what a mentor does, and how we assist businesses. But focusing back onto the social media, as a mentor, I find that a lot of organisations, when I ask them about, so how do you get your visibility, they say, oh, we do letterbox drops, we do flyers, we do paid advertising, radio or TV, and we've got a website, and we've got a Facebook page. But when you go and look at these, particularly the social media platforms, the website, Facebook, Instagram, etc., I find is that they're very rarely kept up to date. So in many cases, sometimes the last post on the platform could be up to 2 or 3 years old. So while they're utilising the platforms, they're not utilising them effectively. So once you make this observation, they say, well, how do I improve that? And the other thing that typically they don't do is make their platforms search engine optimized. So if you go to Google this particular business, you find they might come up on the second or third page as opposed to the first page. So as I've been saying to Steve, I think there's a huge number of opportunities out there for people who can assist, particularly small businesses, with their social media marketing. Because one, it's perceived as a technology, and as such, people see technology as a bit of a challenge. So it's pleasing to see that Steve's organisation is very, very young, because I think the young people can relate to technology much more effectively than some of us more mature people that struggle with it. So again, I think it's a great opportunity for you guys to offer up your services and get involved with businesses and add value. Any questions?
I'll let them think about if they've got any questions. I think the thing is, it is important ultimately that, firstly, to be aware of what services are available as mentors. Now, in the case of joining the BNI chapters, you do have some mentors there that are more experienced, more mature, as Clinton said. The opportunity perhaps within the BNI chapter is to kind of look out with who might be a good mentor within a BNI chapter. So BNI does have a practice along that line. But anyway, that's the first thing. The other thing I was reminded when Clinton was talking is that the quote was actually very good, but I won't quote it the way that it was put. But the reality is we have access to mentors through the likes of the Small Business Mentoring Service, so SBMS. But I always do remember Clinton mentioning to us, it's lucky you've got access through the SBMS because there's no way you could afford me if you were accessing through my old consulting days. It was actually done in a relatively nice way. Yeah, anyway, he suggested that in a very nice way. I think it's probably the best thing to say. Often, particularly for Clinton, clearly he does it in the same way as Adrian mentioned at the start. He does it because he enjoys seeing others benefit as a result. He doesn't do it because of his financial. He doesn't need it as a financial reward nowadays. There is a cost involved, but it's a nominal cost to have such a person as Clinton in my life. That quite rightly, if I tried to probably engage him as a consultant in the early days in a consultant fashion, there's no way that he would have probably entertained. And now we have the benefit because of him giving back. Realistically, I think it's fair to say, Clinton.
Yeah, and I think that's where my piece comes from is the fact that I can use my 40 plus years experience in the world in a number of different roles and environments to the benefit of others, particularly small business, where one thing that I recognised when I was doing my consulting business was people really have a dire need in some cases, but can't afford to pay for that. So this is where organisations such as SBMS, where all the mentors are volunteers, so like myself, a lot of them have got a lot of world experience, and if you had to go into the market to get that sort of expertise, you would pay significant monies for that.
And I think to your point, we often talk about the marketing house and the model that we use. Now, someone like Clinton's involvement in business, so just in what Clinton's just said there, in a way, we give back by doing our one-to-ones and our presentations where we do actually explain to people where social media sits in a marketing house, and we try and demystify some of the perceptions people have around marketing, right? So we often talk, and I've shared, Clinton, the fact that we go into these chapters and often our best referral partners are the likes of the business coach or the business strategy person because they know that we're only focusing on one element of marketing and in fact only one element of marketing communications. I often use the phrase that what we call marketing, business just calls business, right? And what business calls marketing, we call marketing communications. But we do have a role, whether people choose to work with us or not, just to simply educate around where we sit, what technologies that we actually use, and how we best use that. And certainly, I know particularly early, Clinton was very informative to me in terms of the types of information, just marketing general information and how we apply that to a small business, right? Because small business isn't like applying it to a corporate brand. So you can take what you can from our corporate learnings and from our studies, but we need to bring it down to a level where you're dealing with people that are at that grassroots, that local level of business rather than the corporate level looking down almost. So I certainly know that from very early on, it's probably because of the benefit, Clinton, that you moving from being corporate and into consultancy, then that was good for me in terms of being from a consultant's perspective. That's a very different perspective than a corporate employee, correct?
Yeah, it is, and it's very much a horses for courses type scenario where a corporate solution at the grassroots level had exactly the same this as a solution for a small business. It's the degree of complexity and flexibility, and also the scope of the change in the particular environment. In a small business where there's probably one or two or three people versus a corporate scenario where there could be thousands of people, it's a different scenario. So you really need to pitch the solutions for that specific environment. One of the key things I think is showing businesses how they can differentiate their particular products and services from those of their competitors, because I think that's the key to longevity and success in the business world. That's why I mentioned that we focus our mentoring around the three key elements of innovation, diversification, and differentiation. The differentiation is how does my business differ from my competitors? And in this COVID situation, another key element, they may have been a shop front, retail, dependent on foot traffic coming past that business. But once the COVID restrictions came in, limited people's ability to move about, that business income suffered accordingly. So those businesses have had to look to how they can diversify the way they deliver their products and services. And many of them have gone online. So they've diversified their business from face to face to an online business.
So I think probably the other thing to perhaps take away from Clinton's message and share today is in our B&Is, let's do an early one-to-one, early meeting with the business coach, business strategy type person. They really are an important person because they're the ones that people are going to for advice around, what could they be doing around innovation? What could they be doing around differentiation? What could they be doing around diversification? And you can even use that language with them because effectively, in many ways, we apply a number of those things to our business, right? So, but I think, just look out for the business person, the business strategy type person, particularly in the chapters. If they're not in your chapter, maybe go and look at a chapter nearby and see if there is somebody nearby in a cross chapter that you could be talking to, and just maybe have a chat to them as well, because it really is hand in hand. And unless people have that business fundamentals together, then they're going to struggle no matter how much social media marketing that we do, right? Ultimately. Awesome, Clinton. Thank you so much. I'm going to, yeah.